essential compounds in the body. So follow carefully. Glycine metabolism, you follow carefully. Turn off your microphone. Glycine. Glycine, you know that this is the simplest amino acid among all the 20 amino acids. Among all the 20 amino acids, glycine is the simplest amino acid. This is a non-essential amino acid because it can be synthesized from the other amino acids that are present in the body. So it is a non-essential amino acid. And this is a glucogenic amino acid. Glucogenic amino acid. Glucogenic means you know that on the catabolism, glycine can form a compound which is responsible for the formation of glucose via gluconeogenesis. So glycine is the simplest amino acid, is a non-essential amino acid. It is a glucogenic amino acid, means it helps in the synthesis of glucose via gluconeogenesis. Now formation of glycine takes place from serine, takes place from another amino acid called threonine by glycine synthetase reaction, by the enzyme glycine synthetase reaction. Okay, so glycine can be synthesized from two amino acids, like that is serine and threonine. Both serine and threonine can synthesize the glycine. So that is why glycine is a non-essential amino acid. The synthesis of glycine is carried out by the enzyme called glycine synthase. Glycine synthase. Now see, serine is a amino acid. Serine is a hydroxy group containing amino acid. Hydroxy group. Amino acid means you remember the chemistry of amino acid. Now there is a COOH group and amino group on alpha carbon atom. Then it is called amino acid. So serine is having one hydroxy group onto the alpha carbon atom. So it consists of CH2OH. OH group is there. So this is a hydroxy group containing amino acid. So serine, by the action of the enzyme serine hydroxy methyl transferase, serine hydroxy methyl transferase is converted to an amino acid called glycine. So glycine is synthesized from serine by the action of the enzyme serine hydroxy methyl transferase. Here there is a transfer of methyl group. There is a transfer of methyl group. This CH2OH is there, no? CH2OH is converted to CH3 group. Okay, CH3 group, and that CH3 group means methyl group is taken up by the tetrahydrofolic acid. Tetrahydrofolic acid is the active form of the folic acid in the body. So folic acid active form is tetrahydrofolic acid. This tetrahydrofolic acid, what it will do, it takes the methylene CH2, what do you call methylene means there is a double bond. Methane means CH4, right? So methylene means there is a double bond in the group. Okay, that one carbon fragment is taken up by the tetrahydrofolic acid, and this tetrahydrofolic acid is converted into N5N10 methylene tetrahydrofolic acid. N5 and N10 methylene tetrahydrofolic acid. So this CH2OH group is released. As a result, serine is converted to glycine, and the methylene group that is released during the reaction taken up by the tetrahydrofolic acid, and tetrahydrofolic acid is converted to N5N10 methylene tetrahydrofolic acid. N5N10 methylene tetrahydrofolic acid. This is how glycine can be synthesized from serine in the body. Now I also told you that threonine also can synthesize the amino acid glycine. Okay. Now see the threonine is also another hydroxy group containing amino acid. OH group is there on the third carbon. So this is another hydroxy group containing amino acid. Serine and threonine both are hydroxy group containing amino acids. Now if you see the structure of threonine, from the serine there is one additional methyl group is there. One additional methyl group is there when compared to the serine in case of threonine. So this threonine by the enzyme threonine aldolase, it is converted to glycine and acetaldehyde. Glycine and acetaldehyde. Aldolase enzyme, what it will do, it cleaves the compounds. It cleaves the compound. Now this threonine aldolase cleaved at the in between second and third carbon atom. The cleavage happens in between second and third carbon atom. So the above structure is nothing but the amino acid, simplest amino acid, glycine. So glycine is formed. Now the lower portion CH3CHOH, it becomes CH3CHO, means acetaldehyde. So by the action of the enzyme threonine aldolase, the hydroxy group containing amino acid threonine undergoes cleavage and results in the formation of amino acid glycine and another compound called acetaldehyde. So this is how glycine can be synthesized from threonine by the action of the enzyme threonine aldolase. Now glycine synthase is another enzyme. Glycine synthase is another enzyme which can synthesize the glycine. So what happens here, if you see the carbon dioxide and ammonia on condensation can give glycine by the enzyme glycine synthase. So here N5N10 methylene tetrahydrofolate is converted to tetrahydrofolate and it donates one methyl group, one carbon group to the condensation of CO2 plus NH2 and methyl group is added. As a result, glycine is synthesized. So glycine synthase is a multi-enzyme complex and requires pyridoxal phosphate, NAD, tetrahydrofolic acid for its activation. So instead of synthesizing from the serine and threonine, glycine can also be synthesized from carbon dioxide, ammonia and N5N10 methylene tetrahydrofolate, PLP and NAD coenzymes. So from carbon dioxide and ammonia, with the help of N5N10 methylene tetrahydrofolate compound, glycine can be synthesized by the enzyme glycine synthase in our body. So that is why it is a non-essential amino acid. Now just see the catabolism. Till now we have seen the synthesis of glycine from other amino acid. Okay, that is anabolism. Now once the glycine is formed, how glycine is utilized in the body, that is nothing but catabolism. Now see, glycine can be synthesized, can be catabolized to a compound called glyoxylate. Glycine can be catabolized to a compound called glyoxylate. This glyoxylate can undergo further degradation into compounds called oxalate and formate. This formate is taken up by the tetrahydrofolic acid and forms into a compound called N10-formyl tetrahydrofolate. Okay. Now this oxalate enters into the citric acid cycle, and through citric acid cycle it can result in the formation of pyruvate, and this pyruvate can serve as the source of glucose via gluconeogenesis. So this is a glucogenic amino acid. Okay. Now glycine can be synthesized from serine also. So serine degradation can be a catabolic pathway for glycine as well. So glycine can be synthesized from serine and serine can be synthesized from glycine as well. So glycine can be converted to serine, again from the glycine it is converted to glyoxylate. Otherwise glycine can be converted to serine, and serine can be converted to another amino acid called ethanolamine. Ethanolamine is a very important compound which is required for the formation of a important phospholipid called phosphatidyl ethanolamine. And serine, by serine dehydratase enzyme, it can be converted to pyruvate, and pyruvic acid is used for the synthesis of glucose via gluconeogenesis pathway. Now this ethanolamine can be converted to glycocolate, and this glycocolate is converted to glyoxycolate. So this glyoxycolate further cleaved into oxalate and formate. Same fate will be seen, and formate is taken up by tetrahydrofolate and N10-formyl tetrahydrofolate will be there. This glycocolate is a bile acid. We have told in cysteine we have told that formation of taurine takes place, and taurine with choline it forms taurocholic acid, that is a bile acid. Similarly, similar to that of taurocholic acid, there is another bile acid called glycocholic acid. Okay, so glycocholic acid is formed from here. So ultimately glycine undergoes catabolism, results in formation of oxalate and formate. Oxalate can enter into the citric acid cycle and can serve as a source of glucose via gluconeogenesis. And formate is a one carbon compound which is immediately taken up by the tetrahydrofolic acid, and this tetrahydrofolic acid is converted by taking formate into N10 formyl tetrahydrofolate. So this is how glycine catabolism takes place. So the same thing is summarized here. Glycine on transamination by the enzyme transaminase is converted to glyoxylate. This glyoxylate can undergo cleavage into oxalate and formate. Formate can be incorporated with the tetrahydrofolate forming N10 formyl tetrahydrofolate, and glyoxylate can also be formed from glycocholate, which is a degraded product of serine. Serine can be formed from glycine, and this serine undergoes decarboxylation into another amino acid called ethanolamine, and this ethanolamine on deamination process it is converted to glycocholate. So glycocholate is converted to glyoxylate, and again glyoxylate fate is formation of oxalate and formate is incorporated in N10 formyl tetrahydrofolate. So this is the summary of glycine metabolism. Here I have shown the formation of glycine and degradation of glycine is also shown, everything in the same slide. Okay. So this is the summary of glycine metabolism. You can go through it later on also. Functions. Important topic is metabolic functions of glycine now. Glycine is used for synthesis. Glycine is used for biosynthesis of heme. Glycine is used for the biosynthesis of heme, purine ring formation, creatine synthesis, glutathione synthesis, and glycine is required as a conjugating agent for many substances. Glycine acts as a neurotransmitter. Glycine acts as a constituent of proteins, because this is an amino acid. This is an important constituent of many biological proteins. Okay, so glycine is used for the biosynthesis of heme, for the formation of purine ring. This purine ring formation, when we have discussed about the nucleic acid metabolism, the purine synthesis by Salvage pathway, I have told how the carbons are coming from. The carbons are coming from purine ring is also included from glycine. Now creatine, glutathione formation means glutathione includes gamma glutamyl cysteine glycine. Glutamate is there, cysteine is there, glycine is there. So glycine is an important component of glutathione, and it acts as a conjugating agent. Conjugating agent means for the detoxification of many substances or for the conjugation of substances in the body requires the binding of glycine with them. And glycine also acts as a neurotransmitter. Glycine acts as a important constituent of many biological important proteins. Now one by one I have discussed here. We'll go fastly. Heme synthesis. Heme synthesis, glycine is required. Let's say if you see the first step of heme synthesis, glycine plus succinyl CoA. Glycine plus succinyl CoA is the reaction, and first reaction of heme synthesis. This reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme ALA synthase. ALA synthase means ALA means amino-levulinic acid synthase. Amino-levulinic acid synthase. So this is the first step of heme synthesis. If you open and see the heme metabolism, synthesis of heme in your textbook later on, you can understand. This is the first step of the heme synthesis. Glycine plus succinyl CoA by the enzyme action ALA synthase, these two are condensed and results in the formation of a compound called delta aminolevulinic acid, also called as delta aminolevulинate. This reaction is catalyzed by the enzyme enzyme ALA synthase, and PLP pyridoxal phosphate is required as a coenzyme for this reaction. This is the rate limiting step of heme synthesis. So glycine is very essential for the synthesis of heme of the hemoglobin. Heme of the hemoglobin is nothing but heme synthesis. So in the during the heme synthesis, the first step itself glycine is required. So without the availability of glycine, the formation of delta amino levulinic acid will not take place. So heme synthesis will not take place. So this is the rate limiting step in the heme synthesis. Next, purine ring formation. Purine ring formation, also this glycine amino acid is involved. So glycine contributes to the amino acid C4, C5 and N7. C4, C5, N7. Whole amino acid glycine chain is incorporated in the purine ring synthesis. De novo synthesis of purines, I have told that this glycine is incorporated as it is in the purine ring synthesis. This I have told in the de novo synthesis of purines. So whole glycine is incorporated. C4, C5 and N7 of purine ring comes from the amino acid glycine. Then 5-phosphoribosylate 1-amine plus glycine converts into a compound called glycinamide ribonucleotide. Glycinamide ribonucleotide. So this glycinamide ribonucleotide is also seen for the formation of nucleotides. Then synthesis of creatine. This is very, very important. Synthesis of creatine. Synthesis of creatine. So creatine, we are doing the test in the lab. Urea creatinine test we are doing. This creatinine forms from creatine. So synthesis of creatine requires this amino acid glycine. 2 amino acids are required for the synthesis of glycine, that is arginine and glycine. Glycine and arginine. These 2 amino acids are required for the synthesis of compound called creatine, which is very important. Okay. So arginine and glycine amino acids, by the enzyme action arginine and glycine transaminidase in the kidneys, they synthesize a compound called gonidinoacetate. Gonidino group is present in arginine amino acid. So this gonidino group of arginine reacts with the glycine by the enzyme arginine glycine transaminidase is converted to gonidinoacetate compound. This gonidinoacetate by the enzyme gonidinoacetate methyl transferase. Gonidinoacetate methyl transferase means there is a transfer of methyl group. So methyl group is donated by SAM, S-adenosyl methionine. S-adenosyl methionine donates this methyl group to the gonidinoacetate. So this gonidinoacetate by the methyl transferase, gonidinoacetate methyl transferase enzyme, it takes the methyl group from acetylinosyl methionine and is converted into a compound called creatine. So acetylinosyl methionine donates the methyl group to gonidinoacetate. So this gonidinoacetate in the liver, it is converted into creatine. So creatine is formed. Now this creatine is incorporated in the skeletal muscle. So this is the creatine immediately by the enzyme creatine kinase reacts with the phosphate donated from ATP. ATP donates phosphate group to the creatine, and creatine is converted into creatine phosphate. This creatine phosphate is the source of energy in the muscle. This muscle, the creatine is stored in the form of creatine phosphate. This is a high energy compound because it contains the phosphate group in its structure. This is a high energy compound. When you break this creatine phosphate into creatine and phosphate, what will happen? Energy is released. This is a high energy compound, so energy for the muscle cell comes from the creatine phosphate. Okay, so creatine phosphate is the important source of energy in the muscle, that you should remember. Creatine phosphate on degradation, it gives a compound called creatinine. Or creatine can also be directly converted to creatinine. So degraded product of creatine is nothing but creatinine. This creatinine we are estimating in the blood and urine for assessing the kidney function. Okay. So important compound, synthesis of creatine requires two important amino acids, arginine and glycine. The guanidino group of arginine reacts with the glycine and forms a compound called guanidoacetate. This guanidoacetate undergoes transmethylation reaction, or methyl transferase is the enzyme, and methyl group is donated by the S-adenosyl methionine. Now methionine, S-adenosyl methionine donates the methyl group to guanidoacetate. It is converted to creatine. Now this creatine, by the action of the enzyme creatine kinase, it is converted into a high energy compound called creatine phosphate. This is how energy is stored in the muscle, and muscle gets energy from the creatine phosphate. During the muscle contraction, what will happen? This creatine phosphate is degraded to creatinine, so energy is released to the skeletal muscle cells. So muscles will utilize the energy from the creatine phosphate. Now on utilization, this creatine phosphate is degraded to a compound called creatinine, which is present in the blood and excreted in the urine also. This creatinine estimation only we are doing to assess the function of kidneys. Now this creatine is reversibly phosphorylated to creatine phosphate by creatine kinase and stored in muscle as high energy phosphate. So creatinine, it is an anhydride form of the creatine. It is formed by cyclization of creatine. It is formed by the cyclization of creatine. Creatinine is anhydride form of creatine, and it is formed by cyclization of creatine. You know the serum creatinine normal range is 0.7 to 1.4 milligrams per deciliter, or 0.6 to 1.2 milligrams per deciliter, right? Now urine creatinine range, normal range is 1 to 2 grams per day. 1 to 2 grams per day. This serum creatinine concentration is not influenced by endogenous or exogenous factors, so it is used as a reliable indicator of renal function or kidney function. Now this glycine is required for the synthesis of a compound called glutathione. Glutathione is an important tripeptide composed of glutamine, cysteine, glycine. Glutamine, cysteine, glycine. So glutamate reacts with the cysteine. By the gamma glutamyl cysteine synthase, it is converted to gamma glutamyl cysteine, and gamma glutamyl cysteine condenses with the glycine and results in the formation of the tripeptide glutathione. In the glutathione, the three amino acids are glutamine, cysteine and glycine. So glycine is required for the glutathione, and glutathione, you have seen, it is involved in various functions of the body. Now glycine is required for the detoxification. Detoxification means free radical scavenging. Let's say this is O2 minus. O2 minus is a superoxide radical. By the enzyme superoxide dismutase, it is converted to hydrogen peroxide, and hydrogen peroxide by glutathione peroxidate is converted to water, detoxified to water, and this requires this glutathione reductase C. Glutathione, GSH. Glutathione is converted to GSHG. Reduced form is oxidized form is reduced to GSHG, and GSHG is again further oxidized to GSH. Now this requires NAD and NADPH. So this NAD, NADPH comes from the HMP pathway. So by scavenging the free radicals, it maintains the RBC membrane integrity. So this glutathione is very important tripeptide which is involved in the scavenging of free radicals. Means like superoxide radical, it is scavenged by the action of superoxide dismutase and glutathione peroxidase. Okay, and this glutathione peroxidase activation of this enzyme depends on the availability of glutathione. And we have seen the transport of amino acids also in the Meester cycle or glutamyl cycle. There this glutathione, GSH, glutathione is involved for the transportation of or absorption of amino acids. So this GSH is glutathione is a very important tripeptide. This composed of glutamate, cysteine and glycine. So glycine, cysteine, glutamate are the three important amino acids present in glutathione. So glycine is involved in protection of RBC because it is part of the tripeptide glutathione, and glycine is required for coenzyme A formation. Coenzyme role is there. Reduced form GSH, oxidized form is GSSG. Okay, and this glutathione is also involved in reducing the other substances like mallyl acetoacetate to fumaryl acetoacetate, cysteine sulfonate to taurine, cysteic acid to taurine, and conversion of Fe+3 to Fe+2 also involves this glutathione glutathione, which is made up of glutamate, cysteine and glycine. So many biological reactions requires this glutathione because this acts as a coenzyme for many reactions. This glycine is involved in amino acid transport. GSH is involved in amino acid transport, so it is involved in amino acid absorption, that is called Mr. cycle that we have seen yesterday. And insulin degradation. Insulin is a peptide hormone. You know that it is degraded by hepatic insulin glutathione transhydrogenase. So degradation of insulin also requires this glutathione. Activation of enzymes. Many enzymes having SH group, sulfhydryl group in active sites and are kept in the active form by glutathione. Example, glycerolide 3-phosphate dehydrogenase active site consists of these sulfhydryl groups. So glutathione is required at various places. And methemoglobin formation. Glutathione is necessary for the reduction of methemoglobin to normal hemoglobin. So conversion of methemoglobin means iron will be in ferric state. In normal hemoglobin, it is in ferrous state, means Fe+2 state. If iron is present in Fe+3 state, that is called that hemoglobin is called methemoglobin. This methemoglobin is converted to normal hemoglobin because of the action of this glutathione. So glutathione is very, very important biological tripeptide. Now this glycine is involved in the conjugation reactions. So glycine with cholic acid forms glycocholic acid, and chenodeoxycholic acid plus glycine forms glycochenodeoxycholic acid. Glycine plus benzoic acid, like this aromatic compound benzoic acid, on reaction with glycine it forms benzoyl glycine. So it is benzoic glycine is nothing but hippuric acid. Benzoic acid is toxic to the body, so immediately it is conjugated with the amino acid glycine and converted to benzoyl glycine or hippuric acid, which is water soluble and can be excreted in urine, so eliminated from the body. So glycine is required for conjugation of bile acids, conjugation of certain aromatic compounds like benzoic acid. Glycine also acts as neurotransmitter. It acts as a neurotransmitter in the brainstem and spinal cord. At moderate levels, this glycine disrupts the neuronal traffic. So, but at very high levels, it causes overexcitation also. So, it acts as a neurotransmitter in the brainstem. So, glycine is required for the transmission of impulse. Glycine is a part of many biologically important peptides and proteins. So many polypeptide chains they contain this glycine, and collagen is a very important protein which consists of glycine in rich quantities. High quantities of glycine is seen in the protein called collagen. Coming to the disorders of glycine metabolism, glycinuria means excretion of glycine in urine. This is a very rare disorder, inherited autosomal dominant disorder. This glycinuria is characterized by the increased excretion of glycine in urine. Around 0.6 to 1 grams per day of glycine is excreted, but the plasma glycine levels are normal. In this case, plasma glycine levels will be maintained normal, but the excretion is very high. This is because of the defect in the renal tubule. This is because of the defect in the renal tubule reabsorption of this glycine. So as a result, what happens? There is increased tendency for the formation of oxalate renal stones. However, this urinary oxalate levels are normal. So when the glycine accumulates in the is not filtered by the kidney, and this is excreted in urine, and the urine is stored in the urinary bladder. In such cases, what happens? These oxalates, urine oxalates are more, then it may result in the formation of oxalate renal stones also. Glycine can stimulate the formation of oxalate stones, so it can result in the formation of stones. This glycinuria can be of two types, primary oxaluria and secondary hyperoxaluria. This primary oxaluria, if you see, this is another autosomal recessive disorder associated with this glycine metabolism. So characterized by increased excretion of oxalate. So this increased oxalate, if you see the catabolism of, if you remember the catabolism of glycine, there is a formation of formate group and oxalate group. So oxalate is coming from the glycine catabolism. So if glycine is accumulated in the body, it is catabolized more and results in the formation of more oxalates. These oxalates have tendency to get precipitate into crystals, and they may result in the development of stone formation in case of this glycinuria and primary hyperoxaluria. So there is excessive glycine catabolism leads to the formation of excessive oxalate, and this oxalate accumulation in the body can result in the stone formation. It precipitates and develops into crystal like structures, and continuous accumulation may result in the formation of stones in the kidneys or stones in the bladder. So this urinary oxalate is of endogenous origin, so this is produced in the body only. So this is not related to the dietary intake of oxalate. So this defect, that is why this is called as primary hyperoxaluria. So this defect is in the enzyme glycine transaminase. This defect is in the enzyme glycine transaminase, which is coupled with the failure of catabolism of glyoxylate to oxalate. So as a result, renal deposition of oxalates takes place. This can cause nephrolithiasis, means stone formation in the nephrons, can cause the pain, renal colic, pain in the kidneys. So that is called renal colic, and the excretion of these stones through urine can cause damage to the urethra, that can lead to the loss of blood in the urine.